Hi guys, Mrs. Ranieri here. Today is Monday, April 27th, and we're going to be working on lesson 9.6, Simplifying Fractions. It's located on page 258 in your textbook, so if you don't have it out already, you need to go ahead and get it. Make sure you're ready to begin work, all right? Page 258. Okay, here we go. Simplifying fractions, or what I like to call how low can you go? So, we have a vocabulary word for you, and that vocabulary word is simplify. And simplify means to make an equivalent fraction using the smallest numbers possible. All right? And that's what we're going to be doing. How do you do that? Well, you do it by dividing. You divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number until you cannot go any lower. All right? So let's find out how low you can go. Before we do that, I want you to think about what represents a fraction. And here I have some models to help us kind of review what an equivalent fraction is. So here's a whole. All right? My first model that I have is marked 1/2, all right? And 1/2, you know by now, is when we take the whole and we divide it into two equal parts. That's what our denominator is telling us there. The next model that I have is fourths, and here I have 2 out of the 4/4 that would make the whole. And when we put it next to our half, we can see visually this is the same as a half. So 1/2 and 2/4 are equivalent fractions. Another equivalent fraction would be 3/6. Here, if we take the same whole and we divide it up into 8 equal parts, we're going to have 8ths, and we have 4/8 is equal to 1/2. I have some tenths here. We take that same exact whole, and if we divide it into 10 equal parts, 5 of them will be equivalent to 1/2. And then finally, I do have some twelfths here. I have 6/12, and 6/12 is equal to 1/2. So when we talk about simplifying a fraction, we're talking about representing that fraction in the simplest way possible with the fewest amount of pieces possible. So that's basically what we're doing. So we're saying the simplest way, really, to represent 6/12 is to just go ahead and call it 1/2 because it's equal to 1/2. Got it? Whoops. All right, so let's try a couple of these, okay? How low can you go? I'm going to move this out of our way for a moment. Here I have the fraction 10/12. So the first step in simplifying is to divide, again, our numerator and our denominator by the same number, a number that they both can be divided by. I always like to start with the lowest number possible just because it makes it easy. When I look at 10 and 12, I see right away that they're both even numbers, so I know that the number 2 is going to be something that's going to work for us. So let's go ahead and divide. Let me use a different color here. Our top and our bottom by 2. So I'm going to divide 10 by 2, and I'm going to divide 12 by 2. All right? And that's going to get me 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. Then what I have to do is I have to make sure that I can't go any lower than that. Is there any number that I can divide 5 and 6 both by? There's not, is there? So this is our simplified fraction. This would be our final answer. 10/12 simplified is 5/6. All right? Let's look at the next one together. I see again both of these numbers, the numerator and the denominator, are even numbers, so I could go ahead and start with the number 2 and divide. It's always a sure bet if they're both even. So I'm going to divide 8 by 2, and I'm going to divide 12 by 2. And when I do that, I get 8 divided by 2 is 4, And 12 divided by 2 is 6. All right? But I have to make sure that's as low as I can go. Can I divide 4 and 2 by any other number besides 1? I can, can't I? I can divide by 2 again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide by 2 again. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my final answer here is 2/3. Okay? Some of you might be looking at this 8/12 and saying, you know what, Mrs. Ranieri, if you had divided by a larger number than 2 to begin with, you could have been done quicker. And you're absolutely right. Let's look at this again. If I were to divide by a larger number to begin with, let's say I look at both these and I say, oh, wait a minute, they both could be divided by 4. Let's try dividing both by 4. Then what will happen is we'll simply be finished quicker. We won't have 2 steps. We'll just have 1 step. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So you can see we get our 2/3 in 1 step that way. All right? Here we have 16/24. This one might be a good opportunity to look for that greatest common factor to help us get to our answer quicker. But then again, if you want to start with 2, you'll get there eventually. I'm going to look for my greatest common factor here to make my life a little bit easier, okay? 16 divided by what number and 24 divided by what number? They both could be divided by 2. 3? No. 4? Yes, they could both be divided by 4. I wonder if we could go higher. 5? No. 6? No. 7? No. How about 8? Let's divide both of these by the number 8. I believe it's the greatest common factor for both 16 and 24. So let's go. 16 divided by 8 is 2. And 24 divided by 8 is 3. So again, this one gives us an answer of 2/3 as well, which means actually this fraction 16/24 is also equivalent to 8/12. Pretty cool, right? So basically that's how we simplify a fraction. Again, make sure you're aware of what your simplification definition is, okay? When you are simplifying, you're simply looking for a number that both your numerator and your denominator can be divided by, and that is going to give you the simplest representation of your fraction, okay? The least amount of pieces. As you begin to do page 258 in the book, you're going to find that you're going to be given some models to look at, and they're going to ask you what would be an equivalent fraction to this model, and they're actually showing you a picture. You'll see that. So they want you to do some with models, and they want you to do some by dividing by that either greatest common factor or start with a lower one, and you may have to do it multiple times, all right? I want you to give it a try. You may go ahead and record these answers in your textbook, and it could be that later on in the week we will ask you to send those answers to us by email or some other method. But for the time being, we're going to ask you just to go ahead and record them in your textbook, all right? Good luck, and remember, we're always available in the Learning Center. If you're having difficulty, check in your lesson plan there for the Google Meeting Room. We're there from 11 to 12, and again from 1 to 2 each day. All right, guys? Have fun with this. It's not hard, right? How low can you go? Ciao.